Man, I remember when the original Watch Dogs was announced. I was so excited, it looked like a game that was tailor-made for me. I pre-ordered it, which I don't usually do, and played it as soon as I got home from work that day, and then I put it down after 3 hours and never really picked it up again. A few years later, Watch Dogs 2 came out, and while the main villain and all of the side characters made me die a little inside every time they opened their mouths, I really liked Marcus as a character. He was the smart, cool guy I wanted to be when I was younger, and he reminded me a lot of a close friend of mine, so I actually put a lot of time into Watch Dogs 2, and I still see it as the definitive Watch Dogs experience. All of this is to say that Watch Dogs Legion is, for all intents and purposes, just another Watch Dogs game. But screw it, I dropped $60 American on this and waited 32 hours for it to download because apparently I'm using the same Wi-Fi Judas used to tweet Jesus' location to the Romans, so let's talk about it. A wise man once said,
"Say what you like about Ubisoft, at least they diligently recycle."
and I really can't help but agree. This is very much a Ubisoft game. Lots of map markers and waypoints and district liberating, but there's no real way to see your impact on the world around you beyond the map just turning a different color. The gimmick this time around is that you can recruit anyone off the street, and I do mean anyone. Choose carefully though, because you only have so many people in your squad before you have to start giving some the boot, and the voice acting for 90% of the characters is really bad. It brought me back to the PlayStation 2 era of video game voice acting, and not in a good way. Everyone sounds like robots! Beep boop, you are good, we are good, join us because we are good. Beep boop, yes, we are good, let us do good, beep boop. That's basically what it sounds like. Why is this even still an issue? I could kind of understand it back in the day before most people really saw gaming as real entertainment and art, or with small developers who have to hire their friends or do the VO themselves, but there's really no excuse that a modern AAA game with a multi-million-dollar budget can't get better actors. This is going to continue to be a sticking point for me, so be prepared for this to come up in a lot of future videos. Sorry, I got sidetracked. I was talking about the recruitment mechanic. So essentially what happens is you find a prospective recruit, you scan them to find out about their strengths and weaknesses, and if you like them, you can talk to them or save them to your database. Either one will trigger a quest to recruit them, a favor for a favor type deal. Each character you recruit will have certain positives and negatives, my personal favorite being this one. Spontaneous death. Whose idea was that, and why are they not being paid more? That is comedy gold. Yeah, I was gonna recruit that guy, but he just kinda died. Another personal favorite is nervous farts that alert the enemies to your presence. Yeah, you're no Ethan Hunt, that's for sure. You'll also unlock special operatives and unique skills and weapons as you progress through the story, but these people can also be found just sort of farting around the map as well. Originally, my plan was to build a team that looked exactly like the Expendables, but I had a really hard time finding my Jason Statham and my Sylvester Stallone, so instead I found a guy who looked like Keanu Reeves and dressed him up like John Wick. You adapt. Anyway, your new recruit will send you off on a quest in order to get them to join, and they must not have programmed many recruitment quests because I got the same exact quest 5 times in a row. And then, after completing it, I had to sit through the acceptance speech from all 5 NPCs who gave me that quest one after the other. I know it's probably a pain in the neck to program new quests, but I would like to see some more variety here. Now, I admit I found the Too Cool for School group of Super Friends in Watch Dogs 2 to be extremely cliché and uncomfortable to the point of parody, but I actually like the Too Cool for School group of Super Friends in Legion because it's my Too Cool for School group of Super Friends. If I get tired of Bruce Willis over here, I can switch back to Keanu Reeves. Or Banksy. Or Einstein, apparently. The problem is that because there's an infinite number of recruits and all of them have the same couple of voice actors with the voice modulated up or down accordingly, what you inevitably end up with is a whole group of people who look and sound different superficially and may play somewhat differently based on their perks and weaknesses, but they all have the same couple of personality traits and speech patterns, which makes none of them particularly interesting or compelling. I actually think I would have liked this feature a lot more if there were a set number of people you could recruit, but they would all be distinct and different, and the game would assign their personality based on who was already on the team. Then I would be able to make my team look and sound just like the losers and finally learn what serotonin feels like. Even recruiting members directly from the evil corporation running London results in the same anti-evil corporation lines and infiltration quests with only a minor nerf to enemy awareness if you're in uniform. But the biggest problem with all the characters being essentially the same under the surface is that there's no sense of internal conflict that make these buddy cop things work in the first place. All these people do is compliment and validate each other, and anyone else who happens to whiff by them them as long as they're all more or less vaguely on the same side. This really came to head in a quest line where your cabal of hackers decides to join forces with the leader of another cabal of hackers, and every single one of them just loves and praises her before they even vaguely know her. We do one mission for her, and we only do it because it happens to be in our own interest to do so, and she's already made it very clear that she neither likes or trusts us, but I still have to sit through a solid minute and a half of my group of hardened armed insurgents fawning all over this person we didn't even know existed 5 minutes ago. It just gives me this feeling of everyone being fake nice, and I was waiting for the moment where after the 5th or 6th circle jerk session, one of them hangs up the call and just goes, "What a bunch of morons," but it never came. That isn't to say I dislike the recruitment feature, it's just to say that, much like everything else Scooby-Doobysoft puts out, it's not enough jam spread over too much bread. It's still good. It's still jam and bread. I love jam and bread. I keep going back for new jam and bread, even though it basically never changes, but it could use a bit more depth to make the flavor stand out. This little team of yours is also way too flippant about being part of an illegal organization. Every single one of the characters in this game basically just tells everyone they see who they are and what they do, and people just kind of roll with it. They constantly talk super loudly about being members of an underground guerrilla front right out in the open, and no one bats an eye. Are you sure this little Scooby gang is illegal? Because it feels more like a LARPing club than the French Resistance, if you catch my drift.
Shut up.
There are a few characters that are not random that you can recruit, but even they're pretty standard personality-wise. Oh, and speaking of standard personality-wise, Aiden Pierce is back, the protagonist from Watch Dogs 1. Well, at least he's going to show up eventually, according to a lot of little hints and Easter eggs, which... Look, Ubisoft, we know you're proud of this guy, but no one likes him. He wears too many shirts, and I feel like he smells, and he has all the personality of a cactus. You know who isn't all of these things? Marcus Holloway. Bring Marcus back! I like Marcus. Okay, I could go on all day about the characters, or lack thereof in this game, so let's trundle along to a new subject, player loadouts and kit. There's only a minor amount of customization where your weapon, gear, and skills are involved. Basically, you have a suite of tech and non-lethal weapons, although to be honest, there's literally no reason not to just equip the stun pistol and spider drone to everyone in your team. But if you want someone to wield a specific lethal weapon, disguise, or skill, you have to find someone who already has it out on the street. This is supposed to incentivize you to recruit people, but instead it just made me mosey around the city for 7 hours as John Wick with a taser looking for John Wick with a handgun. As of yet, I haven't found him because I think the game keeps track of your recruits' appearances in order to avoid you having an army of clones, but I have added Jefferson Twilight to my roster, so I'm pretty happy about that. The long and short of it is, if you want to build a specific person with a specific loadout, you can't just unlock the equipment from a store or by recruiting someone with that uniform and equipment and then transferring it to someone else. You just have to walk around until you find someone who meets your criteria. It works, I guess, but I still would have liked to be able to transfer kit between agents. On the technical side, I ran into a few day one issues that may be fixed in a patch by the time this review comes out. The first one I noticed was that I had issues with the HUD hanging off the edge of my screen, and the menu to fix the safe range was not functioning. Eventually I got it to work, but there seems to be no fix for map icons and mission briefings only being half on screen, even when I went back and told my PlayStation that my TV is smaller than it actually is. There's also an intermittent bug where sometimes on startup the main menu wouldn't function and I'd have to quit the game and reload. Loading and reading times are fine. They're pretty average for this type of game, and beyond some very minor clipping issues, I didn't notice a whole lot of graphical errors or anything like that, which is staggering for a game of this size. Speaking of staggering, the AI is pretty stupid and often hangs up on pathfinding, and the officer characters are always in a state of mild aggro for no reason, and will sometimes walk up and start pushing you around when you're in shops buying clothes and such. On the subject of clothes, characters will always default to what they were wearing when you recruited them in most cutscenes or when you see them out and around town. The thing is, I know the game saves their outfits because they appear wearing the clothes you put them in your team roster, and they'll reappear in your custom outfits when you switch back to them. This is just a minor thing, but I put a lot of thought into these outfits. I just want my choices respected. That's all. I will say I do really like that you can pull up each person you recruit and get a little bio with their history and known associates and all that, and you can even go out and find these people from their profiles, but again, this is all pretty superficial and doesn't influence their character much at all. Also, hats look stupid. All of them. I understand it prevents the character's head and hair from clipping through the hat, but these things float like 4 inches away from your head on all sides like an overbearing parent. In fact, overbearing parent is a pretty good metaphor for this game in general. Legion babies you insufferably. The best part about a game like this is figuring out your options for completing your mission. But this game won't let you do that. You're incessantly getting messages from your AI companion telling you exactly what all your options are for getting through a mission, and it constantly ruined my sense of accomplishment in figuring it out myself. I know you think we're all stupid, Ubisoft, and we keep buying the exact same game every other year, so you may be onto something there, but we're not that dumb. Let me figure things out on my own. As for the story, I guess it's fine. Full disclosure, I haven't completely finished the story yet because I really wanted to mess with the mechanics and get a feel for how both the main and side quests function so that I could give a more comprehensive picture of Legion rather than burn my way through it in order to get the review out as fast as possible.
Don't give me that, you snotty-faced heap of parrot droppings! What? Shut your festering gob, you Your type makes me puke! You vacuous, toffee-nosed, malodorous pervert!
So far, it's mostly more of the same corporations are evil story that we've been getting from ostensibly evil corporations for the last, 30 years. I think they're hoping that when people inevitably start dismantling the big companies, they'll stop and go, "Wait! Not Ubisoft! They're on our side!" I actually did kind of like the quest line where you're investigating this mob boss lady who deals in human trafficking. It was one of the few narrative arcs that was self-contained enough to actually make it feel like you were making a difference. Which brings me nicely along to my biggest issue with Legion's plot. It's unfocused. Considering anyone you pick up off the street can be the protagonist, it would have been hard for this story to be focused, but I am glad they didn't go the Borderlands 3 route where you may as well have just not been there at all, so this is less a complaint and more of an observation, but it does bring me full circle to my previous mention about all the characters being interchangeable. I remember one specific point where I was playing as a guy I had recruited really early on in my playthrough, and someone I had just recruited less than 10 minutes earlier came in over my headset to offer a quip about how eventually I'll get used to the support AI's personality, and it really cemented that none of these characters are characters. The thing is, there is one overarching narrative, but the game keeps losing focus of it to go down these other tangents to start side quests on, but it brings it up as a main quest line rather than starting it off as a side quest line, and so what happens is the main story just grinds to a halt every 5 or 6 missions so that you can get distracted by something entirely different. It feels like you're being told a story by a hyperactive toddler who keeps forgetting where they are and backtracking into different stories and then remembering they were telling you a different story and jumping forward into that, but then forgetting again halfway through and ending up telling a completely different story before remembering the second story that they started and moving back onto the first one afterwards. You know what I mean. As for the gameplay, come on, it's Blue's Clue Ubisoft. You already know what the gameplay is. You run around the map collecting tidbits and tchotchkes and doing side quests to liberate districts to make the map go from red to green and occasionally getting into fistfights and shootouts. The formula really hasn't changed much, even within just the Watch Dogs series. It's the exact same gameplay as Watch Dogs 2, and it's even pretty comparable graphically. Missions tend to revolve around hacking a specific terminal or rescuing and/or eliminating some random NPCs, and you can complete these objectives multiple ways. Sneak in, send a drone, hack computers and security cameras remotely, or just run in shooting and hope you get out with the same number of holes you went in with. Is it fun? Well, yes, actually. And I think this is the biggest issue and the biggest strength of Watch Dogs. It's not so much a game as it is a toy. I was having a lot of fun just running around, making up my own stories, and infiltrating random strongholds to steal their money, and as long as all of my teammates kept their mouths shut, it was a good time. Then I'd remember I have actual story quests to do and realize just how much I don't care about them. In fact, I ended up largely ignoring the story even while doing story missions and just making up my own motivations and whatnot. So yeah, if you're a fan of Love Me Tender, Love Me True Ubisoft's games, and you can handle some extremely ham-fisted political commentary, the odds are good you'll like this one and have a good amount of fun with it. And yeah, as much as I'm not going to get into the game's politics, because honestly I really don't care as long as the game is fun. It's really laid on thick, whether you agree with the narrative or not. And so if you're the kind of person who's sensitive to that, then give this one a miss. The thing is, this really isn't much of a step up from Watch Dogs 2. Most of the characters are still remarkably terrible caricatures of what old people think Gen Xers and millennials are like, and as I said before, the game itself feels like a checklist of every other open world game formula out there. All that said, I had fun with it. It was exactly what I expected, and exactly what I expect to get next time, and as much as I wish Beef Barley's Ubisoft would come up with something new for once, it's probably not going to happen. It's a very wide-reaching but very shallow gaming experience, so if you like that, give it a go, but if you're indifferent, you really won't miss much by waiting until it's on sale. In fact, I recommend waiting until it's on sale or available pre-owned. You'll get to play the game and help get it across to Ubisoft that maybe it's time to try something else. You all be safe now. I'll see you soon. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is my first review that's not a retro review. It's actually covering something current. This is not something I've done before. So let me know how you felt, how you liked it, and if it was actually helpful to you in deciding whether or not you're going to check out this game. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're into it, and drop a comment, even share the video if you're feeling super generous. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. I've got my next review in the pipeline. It's another indie horror movie review, but this one I had a lot more fun watching this one than I did the last one I reviewed. So stick around for that. I'm gonna cut this off now because, like I said in the last video, I record these in my car and it's really cold, so I want to be able to start it again so I can go home where it's warm. You guys all stay safe, stay comfortable as much as is possible, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for stopping by.